What's up, y'all? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Podcast. I am Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer of Buttonwood Football on I-6.9, the legend and Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. Got a fun show planned for you guys today. We're going to be talking about how Texas dominated Michigan 31-12. Big road victory for the Longhorns. I'll be joined in just a little bit by Jonathan Davis. He is the host of Locked On Longhorns. I'll also go through and say what I got right, what I got wrong. We're going to start doing that on the show every week. A little accountability on my part, and best weekend, worst weekend, and much, much more on this edition of the Phillip Jordan Podcast. You can check out the Phillip Jordan Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can also check out the show over at Wiregrass Daily News and watch the show over at my Facebook page, Phillip Jordan Sports, and YouTube page, Phillip Jordan Sports, both the same name. You can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. If you want to email me, just hit me up at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. All right, as I said there in the open, we're going to start things off. What I got right, what I got wrong. Hold myself accountable every single week on a podcast for things I say, things I predict. So we're going to start doing that to kick things off here on the show, at least here during football season. And let's start things off with, I want to be a little more positive, what I got right. I got some things wrong. Let's start where I got right. Alabama over South Florida this past weekend. Now, I picked Alabama to win. They were 31-point favorite there. But this game, I almost got wrong because this game was a lot closer than the 42-16 final that we got on Saturday night. Game was 21-16, 6:45 left in the fourth quarter. South Florida had just kicked the field goal. I'll say this game would have been much different, in my opinion, as South Florida had ability to throw the football. They had no ability to do that. Byron Brown in the game, the quarterback for South Florida, 15-35, 103. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, running the ball, Alabama had no answer for the South Florida running game. They ran for a total of 206. Quarterback Byron Brown had a 108 in the game. Naquan Wright had 64 in the game, all rushing too as well for South Florida. Their defense played well too. I thought they did a good job at putting pressure on Jalen Milroe, and for parts of this game really limited the Alabama run game. But what was the difference was when South Florida would move the ball, getting into field goal range, they kick field goals. They could not put touchdowns on the board. They got one touchdown in there, but outside of that, they were kicking field goals. And maybe late in the game, it was 21-13. You kicked the field goal. I think Alex Goldsmith should have went for it there. Tried to score the touchdown there, make it 21-20, or even tied if you went for 2 and got it. So I think that was a little bit of a mistake there, especially when you're the underdog, you're on the road. Look, we know everybody was excited there in Tuscaloosa because they were renaming or naming the field after Nick Saban, which he did not look pleased in the first half when he was just watching games, some penalties on the offensive line. I think Alabama still has some offensive line issues, the same that they had last year when Jalen Milroe was getting sacked so much. But the Alabama run game really stepped up big there in the fourth quarter. But actually, it got broken open just because of Ryan Williams' touchdown, the freshman, 43-yard touchdown, broke some tackles. Then you had the 56-yard run by Jam Miller, 29 yards by Justice Haynes. And Alabama overall ran the ball for 199 yards, 140 for Jam Miller, and 46 for Justice Haynes. So the running backs played well, made some big runs there in the fourth quarter to pull the thing away. Again, they win 42-16. Alabama outscored South Florida 28-3 in the fourth quarter, but still this game, past midway through the fourth quarter, was a much closer game than that score indicated. So if you just looked at the score, at the box score, it's okay, Alabama took care of business. They were tested, and there were shots of the Alabama fans sitting. They were like shocked that this game was close, but this game was kind of like this last year. It was kind of ugly. Alabama found a way to win. Of course, last year, Jalen Milroe didn't play in the game. So we'll see how Alabama does coming up this Saturday as they travel to Wisconsin for an 11 a.m. kickoff. As I said, we're going to talk with Jonathan Davis from Locked On Longhorns in just a little bit. But I got it right. Texas beating Michigan. I just felt like the Texas offense was going to be too much for Michigan. Michigan is a very young team. Of course, we know no J.J. McCarthy. No. They lose your starting running back. Donovan Edwards has not been much of a player for this team as well at running. So Blake Corum is the guy that's gone now. He's off to the NFL. So when you look at this team, a lot of good players. I think Michigan has some good players, but obviously they've taken a step back. They're not the same team they were when they won the national championship last year. I thought Michigan's defense would keep them in the game a lot longer than they did, but really the opening drive for Texas, even though they didn't score, there was a penalty, then a missed field goal, but still they showed they could move the ball, and then they get the ball back, and they move the ball, score a touchdown. And Michigan answered with a field goal. And the thing is 17-3 as we're getting closer to halftime. And it looked like Michigan was putting something together. They were getting closer to midfield. And then their tight end, Colston Loveland, fumbled the ball. Nobody touched him. He just flat out just dropped the football. And then Matthew Golden for Texas gets a touchdown reception, 24-3, and it was over with. Because you got to look at that. At least Michigan, even if you were able to go in and score and get a field goal, make it 17-6, you probably were thinking, okay, we're in a good position. We get the ball first coming out of halftime. We can even make this 17-13. Of course, you'd love a touchdown. They got a touchdown momentum. But no, Texas gets the turnover. They score 24-3, and this game was over at halftime. Texas just took care of business. I mean, Michigan did get a score, another field goal, and another touchdown, make it 31-12. But yeah, this game was never in doubt if you're Texas. Now Texas moved up to number 2, and I really think we got to start looking at it too. Georgia, without a doubt, the number 1 team in the country right now, and we'll see how it goes in a couple of weeks. They will go to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. We'll see where both those are at when we get to that game on the 28th. But right now, Georgia and Texas look like the best 2 teams in the country. I think there's still some questions with Ohio State and Will Howard. We need to see them in a really big game, which we will down the road. But Texas, man, right, look out this team. And Quin Ewers is a surefire Heisman Trophy candidate, in my opinion. Also, I got this one right, but this was another one I came close to getting wrong. Oklahoma State beat Arkansas in double overtime, 39-31. I'm going to be honest with you, watching this game, Arkansas should have won this football game. They outgained Oklahoma State 648 to 326. They held running back Ollie Gordon to 49 yards on 17 attempts. He did score 1 touchdown. Arkansas has a good quarterback in Taylon Green, transfer from Boise State. He was 26 of 45 for 416, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The running game was there with Jackson at 149, 3 touchdowns. Andrew Armstrong, their wide receiver, 10 catches, 164. So the offense was working. I think the turnovers cost Arkansas on this one. And Erlewin, they're up 14-0. You looking at this game, oh, man, they could go up 17-0, 21-0. But the pick six, Kel Smith runs it back 73 yards for Oklahoma State with 8:50 left in the second quarter. There was a fumble there late in the third quarter by Jackson, equals a Oklahoma State field goal, make it 21-13. So there's just some opportunities there for Arkansas. Some missed field goals by Kyle Ramsey there in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, in overtime, which both teams' kickers missed the field goal in the first part of overtime. But Arkansas had opportunities to put this game away, and they just weren't able to do it. And give credit to Oklahoma State for just battling, finding a way, getting turnovers, and found a way to win. But Arkansas is a lot better than I thought they were. Maybe Sam Pittman won't be fired after this year. We all probably feel like Billy Napier is probably the guy that's really on the biggest hot seat out of anybody in the SEC right now. We'll see how they do this weekend against Texas A&M. But I almost got that one wrong. I picked Oklahoma State to win this one. But Arkansas came close, and I'm just going to say it, Arkansas was the better team in the game. But as we have seen in some football games, the better team does not always win. Now, what I got wrong, let's start off with the team I covered for last year in college football, the Auburn Tigers. Auburn, of course, loses to Cal 21-14. And I had talked all offseason, and I go on other people's shows or any just regular conversation. I said, Auburn can go 9-3 if Peyton Thorne is good. He doesn't have to be great. He has to be good. He was not good Saturday. But there's a lot of other elements of this game. I know Peyton Thorne's getting a lot of the attention, a lot of the criticism for Auburn losing to Cal 21-14. But there were other areas in this game that Auburn lost the game. One, I'll say this, the turnovers didn't help, 5 turnovers, and there were 4 interceptions by Peyton Thorne. I put question on the play calling in the first half. Now, Auburn, 3 for 3, Peyton Thorne, that opening drive. They go down, score a touchdown. Of course, he connects with Keandre Lambert-Smith for the touchdown. So, okay, Auburn's going. They're kind of picked up where they left off against Alabama A&M. This is not Alabama A&M. They're playing Cal. It's obviously a step up over that. And I'll say this, Mendoza, for Cal, he was better quarterback in this game, 19, especially in the first half. 19 to 21, 205, 2 touchdowns. And then Cal was great on third down. 7 to 10 in the first half. Auburn could not get off the field in the first half on third down. They really weren't getting any kind of pressure on Mendoza in the game either. And Jaden Ott, their superstar running back at Cal, was pretty much limited. I mean, I know he was banged up going to the game, but he really didn't have much of an impact in this football game. So a lot of the play calling too for Auburn, I was questioning that. Why aren't you running the ball more, Jarquez Hunter, a guy that was voted at SEC Media Days as first team All SEC at the running back position? So there was just a lot of things that they were doing in this game for Auburn that just did not make sense. Now, second half, they got more pressure. And then the second half, you tried to run the ball more, and that was working. But then you get close to midfield, you start to throw the ball, and then Peyton Thorne getting sacked. Now, I know you can also look at, okay, that's an offensive line issue. And Hugh Freeze even mentioned in the in-game interview that he had a tackle that was hurt. But also, if you're Peyton Thorne, you've got to spot that blitz is coming. You've got to find your hot routes. You've got to get the ball out quicker than you are. And, yeah, he threw 4 interceptions. Of course, there was the one in the first half. Now, he could have thrown a better ball, but it still hit Cam Coleman in the hands, tip ball, interception. He had another one where he got hit. Again, he got hit, impact the pass, I know, but still the blitz, you've got to recognize that. You've got to see that at line of scrimmage before it happens, especially when you've been playing college football. Now, this is your 4th year as a starting quarterback at this level. 2 years at Michigan State, your 2nd year at Auburn. You've got to be better there. And then the other interception, look, Cam Coleman gets injured on a 12-yard play. Then obviously Peyton Thorne doesn't see it. That's when Auburn was out of timeouts. You're running fast. You're trying to hurry, get down the field, try to tie this game. It's still 21-14 at this point. And then he throws it deep to him. Coleman cannot go up with it with both arms, intercepted, and it was just a bad read on the last one. So now we're looking at it, and Cal outplayed Auburn. They controlled the game, time of possession, all that stuff. Cal deserved to win this game. They played a great game. And Hugh Freeze even said it this week at his press conference. Auburn's not good enough to play bad and win when they turn the ball over that many times. Jarquez Hunter did have a fumble in the game, of course. Don't follow too much on that one. He was trying to get extra yardage, and the ball gets knocked out. It just happens like that. He's showing effort, but then obviously the turnover happens there for him. Of course, now everybody's saying, should Peyton Thorne be benched? They play New Mexico this week, not New Mexico State, Auburn fans, just New Mexico. So that is going to be interesting how they go with quarterback. I would expect Peyton Thorne to start this Saturday against New Mexico, but will we see more Hank Brown? There's a lot of people asking for it. I think now we've kind of figured out we do know who Peyton Thorne is. And I said if he's good, they can be good. And now I just don't know. If Peyton Thorne's a guy all year long and we're going to get games like this from him, we could be looking at 6-6 or 7-5. I wouldn't be shocked if he shows out one game. We're like, oh, wow, this is good performance by Peyton Thorne, but he's not the guy. And I agree with a lot of people. I do think Auburn is going in the right direction with recruiting. The players are bringing in. They're not quite there yet to be contenders. But I also believe the quarterback for the 2025 Auburn Tigers is not on this roster. South Carolina they just put it on Kentucky, winning 31-6. And this is another team. Kentucky, I thought had a chance to be something good this year. Brock Vandagriff was good. He was bad in this game. Just 3 for 10, 30 yards. He threw an interception. The Kentucky offensive line, we used to look at this group as one of the best in the SEC and one of the better offensive lines in all of college football. They were not that in this game. 5 sacks allowed. They did run for 139, only 44 total yards passing in the game, 2.6 yards per pass for Kentucky. So Kentucky just big letdown here. Mark Stoops got out coached by Shane Beamer in this game. And South Carolina played well. Their defense played great. This is not all just Kentucky playing bad. South Carolina played really well. Their quarterback, Lenore Sellers, had 166 yards. He was 10 of 14, 2 touchdowns and an interception, but he was good. But Kentucky, I thought this was a team that could be not a playoff team, but an 8-9 win team potentially if Vandagriff was good. But right now, I don't know. They're playing Georgia this Saturday. So they're without a doubt looking at 1-2. I ain't gonna say probably looking at 1-2. They are looking at 1-2. All right. So this is not part of what I got right, what I got wrong, but I really had nowhere to fit this. I guess I got it right. I picked Tennessee to win. Tennessee was super impressive. This team is good on the line of scrimmage, offensive and defense. They're scary. This is a potential playoff sleeper we're looking at with Tennessee. Beat NC State 51-10. Nico, 16 to 23, 211. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he also threw 2 touchdowns. The running game with Dylan Sampson, 132, 2 touchdowns. Just Tennessee just dominated this football game. They're very impressive. And Grayson McCall with NC State, kind of wondering, I don't think this is working out probably the way they thought it would. So, but Tennessee super impressive. We'll see how it kind of moves forward with them. They got a big matchup in not this week, but the next week with Oklahoma when they travel out there for Oklahoma's first SEC game. So, a lot of interesting stuff happening the weekend. So that's what I got right, what I got wrong. All right, we're going to take a 1-minute timeout to do some promotion for Digio Strategies and all the stuff we got going there with the radio stations. But on the other side of that break, I'll be joined by Locked On Longhorns host Jonathan Davis right here on the Phillip Jordan Podcast.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows. Like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits, 106.7 KMX, Today's Country 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7. Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
Everybody joining me as my guest this week. We're talking Texas Longhorn football because they had a big win on Saturday against the Michigan Wolverines on the road. And joining me to break it all down, Jonathan Davis. You can check him out over at Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And Jonathan, I appreciate the time. Exciting times around the Texas Longhorns right now.
Yeah, we were down for a long time, man. You know what I'm saying? To wear this hat or, represent Texas meant you were getting clowned and we were underachieving, and it just been a lot of bad things, So, gratefully, over the last couple of years, it's been good. And, now it's really good, coming off a big victory over the, Michigan Wolverines in the Big House.
Yeah, absolutely. With everything going on in that game, win 31-12. What was your expectations for the game kind of going in? Were you shocked by the result, or were you kind of think, okay, I kind of figured that's what Texas was going to do?
Yeah, I think it's a combination for sure. Like you saw the spread go from -3.5 to -7.5 after both teams played. I think it settled at 7, on the dot. But after Texas, beat Colorado State 52-0, and then Michigan struggled, against Fresno State, I think Vegas and everybody else was like, okay, Texas should win this game. And so I felt good about it. You know what I mean? Like I felt good about Texas winning. Did I think they would go in there and win 31-12? And really that was a garbage time touchdown to Samaj Morgan at the end. I mean, it's really 31-6, for the most part. Did I think they would dominate from the outset? I mean, did I think they would, get that crowd quiet 5 minutes in the game? I mean, that game was over at halftime. We're keeping it real. That game was over at halftime. So I thought Texas would win. I thought they had a pretty good chance to cover the spread, but I thought it would be a close game in the fourth quarter. I thought Michigan would be able to play their game a little bit more, but I mean, Texas made them a passing team from the second quarter on. So, I thought Texas would win. I felt good about them going, in there on the road and, at least winning by about a touchdown. I thought the spread would be, depending on where you got it at, could be a challenge, could not be. I thought they'd win, maybe by a touchdown, but did I think they'd win 31-12? Did I think they'd dominate Michigan in that fashion? No, I did not. I was definitely surprised by that, but I think it's just a testament to where Texas is right now as a program and where Michigan is right now as a program as well. Michigan's trying to figure things out. Texas looks like they got it figured out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people going into the game thought, okay, Texas should win the game because just their offense is going to be problems for Michigan. And Michigan's got good players, but they're just a young football team. I mean, a lot of their starters were gone from last year. Eventually, yes, Texas offense would just take advantage, and then the defense of Michigan would wear out. But I think they didn't score on that opening drive, but I think that opening drive was a tone setter. They went right down the field on Michigan, had the penalty, took the touchdown away, and then, of course, they missed a field goal. But still, that opening drive, then you get the ball again, you go down and you score a touchdown. It's just from the outset. I mean, the offense and just Quin Ewers, they just seem like they were in control the whole time.
Yeah, you talk about that opening drive. I really, that's a good point. I really do think that was the tone setter because you converted 3 third downs on that drive. At least the way I remember. The first one was the huge one where you got backed up. I think Cam Williams had 4 penalties like the first 2 drives in the game. You know what I mean? Like 2 false starts and then the holding that brought back the touchdown. But you had the big, 33-yard pass to Isaiah Bond on like 3rd and 13, which was a huge conversion. I remember another one was the inside screen where they kind of motioned Jaden Blue out to the right. And then you threw the inside screen to Isaiah Bond. He picked up a 3rd down. And I think Matthew Golden picked up the other one, right? But every time on that first drive that Michigan's defense kind of had Texas's back against the wall, Quin Ewers found a way to convert, right? And they just continued to move the ball down the field. I think, they ran over 40 plays in the first half, and like 80% of them, 75% of them were on Michigan's side of the field, right? And so they were just able to do whatever they wanted. Steve Sarkisian was able to call whatever he wanted. Quin Ewers, the offensive line, and the running backs were able to execute however they wanted. And that's why you saw the result that you saw this past Saturday. But yeah, the first drive really showed, me, and everybody else in the country, 100,000 people in the stands, that yes, this Michigan defense is really good, but you're dealing with something else. You're dealing with something different on that other side. And Quin Ewers, Steve Sarkisian, and his offense, they just imposed their will. And like I said, they were able to do whatever they wanted to do to this Michigan defense on Saturday.
Yeah, I think too, a lot of people look at Quin Ewers as, okay, he's just great from the pocket, but he showed on Saturday his mobility, how he could use it. I mean, there's a couple times where he had to, move up in the pocket. And there was one play, and Joel Klatt highlighted it during the broadcast, a little pump fake on the linebacker against Michigan, just froze him up just enough where he could pick up, I think, got a first down on the play. So I think Quin Ewers, another way he was controlling the game, just his feet. I mean, a lot of people don't give him credit for that, but he was showcasing that on Saturday too.
Yeah, he, kind of really, added that to his bag last year. I think 5 rushing touchdowns last season, and really showed an ability on 3rd downs and, some of those crucial downs when he was pressured, being able to, take off and run and, keep this offense on the field. And I thought, he really grew up on Saturday. We've seen him have those big performances before in those big Alabama games, but I thought he grew up. When Michigan did get pressure, when Michigan did get in his face, he did a good job of, like you said, navigating in the pocket, moving his feet, moving up, right, getting to the left, getting to the right, or running, you know what I mean, and making plays. And I thought that just whatever they threw at him, he remained poised through it, for sure. And it just really didn't look like he was rattled at all. I just was talking to Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus, and I said, I know he's technically been in the big house before, as CJ Stroud's backup, but he played like he had just been there before. I mean, he played like he was in DKR. He really grew up, and like I said, and like you said, just being able to move his feet, constantly moving left, right, up in the pocket. He was just really poised. And, I think the team followed, right? You're going to, go into battle and you're going to follow your leaders. You're going to emulate your leaders, right? Steve Sarkisian walked in there just cool as a fan with the Ray-Bans on. And Quin Ewers was just cool as a fan as well on the football field. And the rest of the team followed suit. But, great performance from Quin. Passing game wasn't great in the second half, but, he did all his work, all the work he needed in the first half. And, he really grew up. I asked Max Chadwick, did he answer any long-term questions, right? And we know Quin Ewers is a really good college quarterback, right? But now we're starting to look at how does he project to the National Football League level? You know what I mean? And I think he answered a lot of those questions this past Saturday. He looked like an NFL quarterback at times in the first half against Michigan.
Overall as a team, they rushed for 143 yards, which he contributed to that. And, of course, coming into the season, I know the injuries at running back. First 2 games in, how would you grade how the Texas running backs have played so far?
Well, Texas has run for 333 yards in the first 2 games, right? He's so dominant, right? That's how I graded 10 out of 10, if not 11 out of 10. What I've said, after the Colorado State game is, Steve Sarkisian for a long time has had great running backs, right? And so I'm not even sure if his offense and, what he calls has gotten credit for his great running games. When you have guys like Najee Harris, Roschon Johnson, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, you're like, well, damn, you know what I mean? Of course they're running the ball well because they're, some of the best running backs in the country. But then you lose a Cedric Baxter, you lose a Christian Clark, you have 3 scholarship running backs on the roster, and you go out and dominate, Colorado State with 190 yards on the ground, and then you come back against this Michigan defense, one of the best defensive lines in the country, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart, and others, and you run for over 140 yards as well. No running back had a great performance or an outstanding performance individually, but collectively your running backs receiving and rushing combined for 140 yards. So, I'm saying that Steve Sarkisian's, offense is running back friendly. You could put damn near any running back with talent in there, especially behind that experienced offensive line, and they're going to do a really good job. And yeah, I thought our running backs, were great in the Michigan game. And I thought there was like one or two drives in particular that I remember where they just started gashing them. I think it was Trey Wisner. I mean, he was gashing them like 6-7 yards at a time, right? I mean, they were just, running that inside zone. Their defense never forced Steve Sarkisian off his pivot, right? They never forced him to really adjust too much, right? I mean, he still was able to run his inside zone. And then, when they were starting to get a push or when he wanted to go away from it, quick passes to the outside, right? Neutralizing that pass rush. So, I thought our running backs were great. Something that people may not, realize or may not remember, only 2 wide receivers caught a pass in this game. I know Jonte Cook and DeAndre Moore had passes called back, but Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden were the only 2 wide receivers that caught a pass in this game. Of course, Gunnar Helm went for 98 yards, but everything else was to the running backs. Like literally everything else was to the running backs. And so they did such a good job of controlling the ground game, also making good plays in the receiving game. Like I said, they combined for 140 total yards, Jarrett Gibson, Jaden Blue, and Trey Wisner. And they were one of the biggest reasons that three-headed monster that people didn't think was a three-headed monster when Cedric Baxter went down, 333 rushing yards through 2 games. They've been absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, and looking at the way the first half ended, and that was the big swing moment too, because it was 17-3. Michigan looked like they were doing a little something. They were getting close to midfield, but then there was the Loveland fumble, and then Texas they ended the game there. When it went into halftime, I ain't gonna lie, Jonathan, I said, okay, this game's over. We know 24-3. I didn't think Michigan could come back from 17-3, much less 24-3. Just that moment and how Texas just capitalized on the Michigan mistakes too in the first half.
Yeah, and let me, backtrack a little bit. I said 333 rushing yards through 2 games, which is true, right? But you did have the 55-yard run from Ryan Wingo. So let me, let me give him credit for sure, for 55 of those yards, the other 280 from the running backs. I think, and then Isaiah Bond had like a 25-yard run in the first game. So, Steve Sarkisian just getting everybody involved, in the running game for sure. But yeah, that was a huge swing, and like you said, it felt over, at 17-3. It didn't feel like Davis Warren and that Michigan offense could match, Quin Ewers and that offense score for score. But you're in a situation where Michigan is driving at the end of the first half and they get the ball immediately out of the second half. So if they figure something out, even if they get 3 points, you know what I'm saying, on both ends of that, it's 17-9. It's a 1-possession game. If they get a touchdown and a field goal, you know what I mean? Like anything could have happened in that stretch, right? That's why people talk about that going into the half, coming out of the half. Those 2 drives typically determine football games. And yeah, you're able to not only take the ball from them, but then go down and score one of the biggest plays of the game, one of the best plays of Quin Ewers' career, being able to roll to the left, squaring his body, and throwing that comeback route. On the money, a straight dime to Matthew Golden for the touchdown. So, like you said, you talked about, Michigan going down, having a chance to score with them getting the ball right back after halftime, and instead that turns into another Texas touchdown, essentially the dagger in them. Huge moment in that game, and probably the moment we all knew that Michigan was cooked for sure.
Yeah, it's so deflating if you're on the Michigan side of things because of that, because you're looking, you're probably okay. We're down 7-3
untouched too. He literally just dropped it. You know what I'm saying? Like, thank you. That was insane, man. That was insane. One of the best players in the country, arguably the best tight end in the country at his position, and just a huge blunder at the worst possible time.
I know I'm watching the game on TV and he dropped it. At first, I'm like, did he ever catch it? But he did, and they ruled it as such. But yeah, I was just kind of shocked. I'm like, there's nobody there, but you just drop it. Shows it can happen to anybody, no matter how good you are. But like I say, so deflating for the Michigan side because you probably are down 17-3. So okay, but we can go down, score, at least get a field goal, open the second half a touchdown. We're right back in it, but then it just flips. And of course, obviously coming out of the game, we're talking about how Quin Ewers played. Obviously, and a guy that belongs in. I know we're only added 2 weeks. Heisman Trophy guy, he needs to be mentioned with those players. But the defense, going into the year, you've lost, T'Vondre Sweat, Brian Murphy are gone, Jalen Ford also, but they still got some stars. I know Anthony Hill played well for this team last year and has started this way too as well. What's been your look on this defense? Because obviously people won't talk about the offense because of Ewers, but how well this defense is looking so far?
Yeah, I thought the defense was absolutely outstanding. Michigan didn't have a ton of pass to victory in this game, but if they did, they were going to run the ball, a ton with Donovan Edwards and their backup and keep this Texas offense off the field. And, our defense just didn't allow that. I thought they bowed up in the front and really shut them down. Talk about Donovan Edwards, 70 total yards through 2 games, right? On the cover of NCAA 25. And I mean, man, you talk about him as superstar in college football. I haven't seen it through the first 2 weeks. I know he's had some big games in the past, but your best players got to be your best players in moments like this. But they really forced Michigan to be a passing offense, and Michigan's not going to beat a lot of teams, let alone the Texas Longhorns, trying to be a passing team this year from what you saw with Davis Warren. And then, obviously Alex Orji, like Joel Klatt said, 90% of the time when he's in, they run. So you're not even worried about the pass when he's in the game. But, I thought you saw just so many spectacular performances from the defense. The defensive line showed out. Colin Simmons, 5-star freshman, he came in at the end, the 1 sack, and, just really put, a lot of pressure on Davis Warren. The linebackers shot out of a cannon once again. David Benda and Anthony Hill, they were all over the field. But talk about the secondary. Jahdae Barron picked up the fumble, but he made some great plays. Jalen Gilbo at the corner position coming down, making some great plays. You go out in the portal and you get a 3-year starter at safety, Austin area kid Andrew Makuba, who absolutely just put his footprint all over the game, pass deflections, tackles for loss, interceptions. So when you look at it, this Texas defense was just absolutely phenomenal. And, Max Chadwick, just from Pro Football Focus, my episode will drop tomorrow on Locked On Longhorns, or drop on Tuesday on Locked On Longhorns, I should say. And, he talked about how the defense helped the offense so much, right? You're talking about those big guys that are really the anchor of Michigan's defense, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, right? But the offense is continuously going 3 and out, right? And, you just keep putting those big defensive tackles back on the field. They're getting gassed, right? And they're just not as productive as you normally would expect them to be, right? Because they're used to, sitting on the sidelines, Michigan controlling time of possession, and then those guys are fresh and they can come in and just hunt, right? But Michigan's offense continued to go 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. And so the defense did a really good job. And, of course, that helped the offense because, like I said, the defense was on the field so much that just, after about 4 or 5 drives, they just weren't effective at all.
So looking ahead, now next up is UT San Antonio, which I know on Monday, Steve Sarkisian warned, let's not be a Notre Dame situation. And then you got losing Monroe. Then you got Mississippi State in the SEC opener. You're off, and then you play Oklahoma in the big matchup. And then you got Georgia, Oklahoma and Georgia back-to-back weeks. October is big for the Texas team. But you look at these upcoming weeks before those matchups coming, what would you like to see out of Texas as they kind of continue to build on this season?
Just absolute dominance. In 2022, I was at the Alabama game where we lost 20-19, with Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs making those exceptional plays at the end. And you looked at it and you was like, okay, Texas is on the right track, right? Mm-hmm. And then the very next week, we're down 17-7 to UTSA. You know what I mean? And then last year, we beat Alabama on the road. And then the very next week, we're tied going into the fourth quarter with Wyoming, right? And so that's why Steve Sarkisian, he's literally speaking from experience. Like, you can't go beat a team like Michigan and then just get, like, so high and so full of yourself that you come back and don't take a team like UTSA seriously. So I'll be at the game, this Saturday against UTSA. I think they need to come out and punch them in the mouth, right? We need to see a lot of Arch Manning in this game. I thought they damn near were going to put him in against Michigan the way it was going. But, they just come out and, just prove that you're the second best team in the country. We've seen, scenarios where Oregon has struggled, only beating Boise State by 3 points, only beating Idaho by, 10 points, whatever it was. We just saw Oklahoma only beat Houston by 4 points. Obviously, you brought up the example of, Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois. So, you do got to play 60 minutes of football, right? And I suppose anything can happen. I know they lose to UTSA. You might never see me on Locked On Longhorns again. I know that. But, just go out there and be absolutely dominant. Obviously, ULM and UTSA, they should not, those shouldn't be any types of games, right? Those games they should be out of question by the end of the first quarter, early second quarter at best. So just go out there and prove you are who you think you are, prove you are what we've seen, like they did with Colorado State, at 52-0, not saying there has to be any type of score, not saying, particular score, not saying that they have to cover the spread even necessarily, whatever it is, but just go out there and prove that you're a dominant Texas team against a team that really doesn't belong on the field against you, right? And that's what I expect to see over the next 2 games. In ULM and UTSA, and that's what I expect to see in some of these SEC games, right? You look at Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, right? South Carolina barely squeaking by, Old Dominion. Like, these teams on your schedule outside of, Georgia, really outside of Georgia, all of them had falters, right? Arkansas blowing, double-digit leads to Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, the way they looked against Notre Dame. So there's a lot of teams on Texas' schedule, the way that Texas has looked and the way that those teams have looked. Texas should go in there and really handle business and dominate them. That's why I especially expect to see the next 2 weeks against ULM and UTSA.
I asked you this question to close up with the schedule. I know with the history of Texas football. Anybody that's followed the team, has been a fan team for a long time, kind of be excited about the move to the SEC because we talk about with college these conference expansions losing rivalries. Texas got rivalries back. Going to Arkansas, getting the A&M rivalry game. That's just got to be for anybody that's a fan of Texas. It's got to be exciting just to have those rivalries back on the schedule.
Yeah, I'm so happy, especially with, you talk about the Arkansas game, even though we did play in 2021. So happy for our older fans, that, watch that, rivalry in the, SWC. And then, you get to see that every year again, going on the road, in a tough environment in Arkansas. And then, Texas A&M. I was in high school, the last time they played. I'm 30 years old now. So being able to see that matchup every year and, battle for Texas, at Kyle Field and then at DKR, every year alternating. So just huge matchups for Texas. Like you said, you talked about realignment, so many teams, losing huge rivalries. We just talked about Oklahoma, how Oklahoma and Oklahoma State aren't playing and how weird that feels. You know what I mean? And, I know a lot of, Texas fans don't feel like Texas Tech is a rivalry, but that's a game that I'm like, damn, we're not playing Texas Tech this year. But, like I said, Texas may have come out the best out of anybody with conference realignment, getting these huge rivalries with Texas A&M and Arkansas back, a huge part of the season. But, once again, like I said, those teams have both showed a lot of chinks in the armor early. And even though those are huge rivalry games and typically anything can happen in those games, I think Texas just has really, they got their sights really high this year. You know what I mean? Like Texas, like Joel Klatt said, if you want to win the national championship, you're going to have to go through the Texas Longhorns this season. So as big as those games could be, Texas should go in there and handle business against both of those teams.
Yeah, it's just going to be fun and ending the season right with Texas A&M. I'm glad that's just as a college football fan. I'm glad to see that. And Jonathan, it's been a lot of fun having you on talking all things Texas Longhorns. Just the listener viewers will check you out. Where can they find you?
Yeah, Jonzo Ball, like Lonzo Ball on my personal Twitter, Locked On Horns, the Locked On Longhorns Twitter, and then Locked On Longhorns on, audio and YouTube, just wherever you get your podcast, come through, like, comment, subscribe, talking good ball all year about the Texas Longhorns for sure. So, if you need any Texas Longhorns content, Locked On Longhorns on our way to a national championship. Hook 'em.
There you go. There you go. Well, Jonathan, again, appreciate the time, and I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yes, sir.
High school football season, and that means the Dothan Wolves are back on 96.9 The Legend. Every Thursday night, check out the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show with Jerry Coleman and Ken Lambert as they sit down with Dothan Wolves head coach Jed Kennedy about the previous game and preview the upcoming opponent. If you missed the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show, you can check out the podcast at wiregrassdailynews.com or go to your favorite podcast catcher and just type in Dothan High School Football. And, of course, every Friday night, pregame starts at 6:45 and kickoff is at 7 for all the Dothan Wolves football action. All right. And once again, thanks to Jonathan Davis for coming on and talking all things Texas Longhorns. Really look at it, the three teams that are the best in college football right now, I believe, are Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State. Who is that number 4 team? Maybe that's a question we could talk about on a future edition of the podcast. Some stuff I did not go over there in the open. Some kind of like a lot of that stuff was SEC oriented, of course. But Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois, 16-14. It seems like every year we see this. And Notre Dame, when you look at their schedule, the route was there for undefeated season. Of course, with the new 12-team playoff, they can't get a bye, but still they could have been 5. Well, they would be 5th. But 6, just, you know what I mean, like that. They would have been the best-ranked non-conference champion. But they're not going to be that because they lost to Northern Illinois on Saturday. And after last week when A&M could not run on them for anything. But Northern Illinois had different ideas. They run for 190 yards. And it was just a bad performance by Notre Dame. Once again, Riley Leonard hasn't looked great in his 2 games with Notre Dame. And you look at the Notre Dame schedule, as I was just mentioning, they beat A&M last week 23-13. You lose Northern Illinois, a game you expected to win. At Purdue, Miami, Ohio. Louisville been tough. Louisville's a solid team. Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, at USC. The USC one would have been probably the trickiest one. But when you look at that list of teams on their schedule. He said this team should or could go undefeated. Now we'll see, how do they get back up? They go to Purdue this week. We'll see how that goes. Miami of Ohio before you will play Louisville. We'll see. And another interesting result outside of the Southeast this past weekend was Nebraska beating Colorado 28-10. And look, we all talked about last year with Colorado, right? That the offensive line was an issue, that they could not protect Shedeur Sanders. Well, Dion may have said they fixed the issue, but they have not fixed the issue. They gave up 6 sacks in the game. Tommy Hill had a pick six, which was big momentum play in the game. Nebraska dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, 185 yards rushing in the game. Quarterback Dylan Raiola, 23 of 30, 185, 1 touchdown. Yes, the yardage is not going to, really make your eyes pop out or really look at that. But still, solid performance. Nebraska, I'm not saying Nebraska is back. I'm not saying that. But it's got to be a good feeling right now if you're a Nebraska fan with what the team is doing. And then, again, the thing with Colorado, they are is Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Sanders was 23 of 38, 244, 1 touchdown. And then Travis Hunter caught 10 passes for 110 yards, and he had 3 tackles on defense, too. These are 2 guys that are going to be playing in the National Football League, but they're not really much after that. And to win the football, big-time football, college, pro, high school, whatever level we're talking about, you've got to be able to win the line of scrimmage. Now, a year and 2 games in with Deion Sanders as head coach, this team is not winning the line of scrimmage. They have fantastic skill position players. No one's going to question that. But they don't have the players up front. And until they fix that, this is kind of what they are. And I don't know. I wonder how long this is going to continue to go on. It's going to be very interesting how Colorado looks next year. Deion's still there without Shedeur Sanders, without Travis Hunter. When those guys are no longer with Deion, how's it going to look for Colorado then? He's got to really build a team. He needs to start doing that now because the offense-defense line just horrible. NFL Week 1 was this past week, and yeah, this show, we're predominantly college football, and we'll do a lot of college basketball stuff. But look, I like the NFL. You see the Packers helmet behind me if you're watching on YouTube. I'll say this: the Chiefs just show how they should be the favorite. When they beat Baltimore 27-20, Patrick Mahomes was great, but they have a new weapon in Xavier Worthy coming from Texas. 1 rushing touchdown, 21 yards, 2 catches, 47 yards, another touchdown. He's only going to get better as the year goes on. You add that with Rice. You add that with Travis Kelce. What they have at running back. They're going to be good defensively. And I really think this was a big game. Of course, it came down to the end. We all saw it. Lamar Jackson was great in this game. 273 passing, 122 on the ground. This very well could be at the end of the year. We could be looking at this as the pivotal game to determine who got the number 1 seed in the AFC. Kansas City's better than they were last year, and that's scary. This is the closest I think we really could feel like, okay, this is a team that could win 3 in a row. Now, I watched the Monday night game between the Jets and the 49ers. The 49ers are going to have a lot to say about that. Played really well even without Christian McCaffrey. That defense is going to be good. Brock Purdy continuing to get better as a quarterback, and he's already really good. The weapons they have around him. Going into the season, I said last week, Eagles versus Bengals is my Super Bowl pick, which Bengals did not play well at all. And then the Eagles had some issues against the Packers. But we could very well see the Chiefs and the 49ers again, too, because those 2 teams, opening week 1, look really good. Packers, look, y'all know that's my favorite team, so I'm going to talk about it. If I talk the NFL anytime on this show, I will talk about the Packers. So I will apologize up front, but that's just how it is. They blew opportunity against the Eagles. Eagles win the game 34-29. Of course, the big story was Jordan Love getting hurt. 5 seconds left. MCL sprain. Looks like, let's see, 36 weeks. I've seen some places. We'll see how long he's actually out. Do think it's a mistake. The Packers not going to get a veteran quarterback. I don't think Malik Willis is going to take them to many wins if he's having to be the starter for an extended time. I was saying go get Ryan Tannehill. He's sitting there free agency, but don't look like they're going to go that way. The Eagles had 2 turnovers on the first 2 drives of the game. This game is Friday night in Brazil. And the Packers were not really able to take advantage. 2 field goals in there. I feel like even if you just got a touchdown out of one of those mistakes there for the Eagles, 10 points versus 6, that would have given you a big advantage down the stretch. Also, Missed field goal at the end too as well. So that still is an issue for Green Bay. But if you're a fantasy football player, Saquon Barkley is going to be a big deal for you this year. He had a big game, 109 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and then 2 catches for 23 yards and another touchdown. I have him in one of my fantasy leagues I'm in. So even though he was going against my favorite pro football team, still my fantasy league guy, he helped me a lot there. On Sunday, I'll watch the Jacksonville-Miami game. I really feel like Jacksonville should have won this game, up 17-7 with 2:27 left in the third. And then Travis Etienne fumbled into the end zone. Then the very next play, Miami 80-yard play to Tyreek Hill, which I know he's in the news for some other stuff too. And that really flipped the game, in my opinion. Dolphins win it 20-17. Tua had a big game, 23-37, 338, 1 touchdown. Tyreek Hill was big, 7 catches, 130, of course, an 80-yard touchdown. And Jalen Waddle had a good game, 5 catches, 109. So Miami offensively going to be good. They're my pick to win the AFC East this year. I'm just still wondering, Trevor Lawrence, the guy, is he ever going to step up and be that guy, that top 10-ish quarterback that can be the reason why Jacksonville win games? It's just, I don't know. I really have questions about him now. I didn't think that coming out of college at Clemson. I thought he was going to be on that level of the elites at some point, but he just hasn't got there yet. And then I watched the Cowboys take care of the Browns 33-17. Cowboys stars played well. Dak was good. CeeDee Lamb was good. Michael Parsons was great, as always. Sean Watson just looks lost. He has no confidence. I mean, I wonder, does he want to be there? I mean, the Browns are stuck with him. All that money they're giving him, guaranteed. I really can't get rid of him. But I don't know. He is not the player he was when he was at Houston with all the trouble he got into and then not playing. Hasn't played a lot of games for the Browns either over the last 3 years. Played the last handful of games 1 year, then last year got hurt. And the team played better with Joe Flacco at quarterback last year. Jameis Winston's the backup. Joe Flacco is now with the Colts. So I don't know. He just looks lost there with that team. And I know a lot of people are getting on to Tom Brady on the broadcast. His first broadcast, him and Kevin Burkhardt there doing the game. I feel like Brady was unsure sometimes in the booth, just kind of how when he was analyzing stuff, breaking it down, he paused a little bit on some stuff. But I feel like he's a competitor where that's going to bring it out with the broadcasting stuff. He will be fine. He will get better as he does this. He'll be better because they have the Super Bowl. They're paying him a lot of money to do this too as well. Greg Olson's better right now. Let's just see where Brady goes from the start. Hey, how many of us were great the first day on our job? This is a new job for Brady. It's just we're used to seeing him 20 years or so playing as a great quarterback. And then we've seen him do other interviews and stuff like that. So we do have a high expectation, I think, for Tom Brady doing this. But I think we just need to kind of relax a little bit on Brady as a broadcaster, just kind of give him time and kind of figure out this new job. As we close out, I went to Facebook and asked you, anybody that will listen to me, best weekend, worst weekend. Yes, anybody ask. I ain't ripping this off the Dan Patrick Show, but Dan Patrick is the GOAT and one of the people I look up to in this business. Rhett Baxley, best weekend, Tennessee Vols. I talked about that in the open. Texas Longhorns and Northern Illinois. Worst, Notre Dame and Carolina Panthers. Carolina just completely got whooped up on by the New Orleans Saints. And they just – Bryce Young looks like he's probably going to be a bust because they just have not put anything around him. It's year 2, and it looks worse this past Sunday than it did at any point last season. Jacob Smith just gave me a worse. He said Falcon fans had a worse. And Falcons so excited. Kirk Cousins coming in, having a quarterback, new coach. Arthur Smith's not there anymore. Should be good. 18-10 against the Steelers. It may be a new coach, new quarterback, but it looks still like the same old Atlanta Falcons. Richard Holdridge, Northern Illinois, New England Patriots. They had a big win over the Bengals, 16-10. Bengals did not look great, but Patriots got a win. No one would have thought that. I mean, I got the Bengals going to the Super Bowl. Oh, for anyone worse, Auburn and the Falcons. We've got into that. We do not need to rehash the Auburn Tigers. And Ken Maddox best, Northern Illinois coach Thomas Hammock. And he played running back there at Northern Illinois. If you did not know that, from 1999 to 2002, in his career, he had 2,430 yards. I believe that's 13th all time for Northern Illinois. He had a worst weekend, Notre Dame fans. So a lot of the same ones kind of got mentioned on that one. All right. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Phillip Jordan Podcast. We will be back next week. I try to keep these things on Wednesdays. We got some interesting games this week in college football. So what I'm going to do, I am going to probably post a video. Probably won't be a podcast, but a video of my picks for the football weekend. Probably a quick 5 to 10 minute video. Get that out for you guys. Remember, if you're in the Dothan area, check out the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show on Thursday night, 8 o'clock on 96.9 The Legend. But if you missed the show, you can check it out on the podcast or at the Dothan High School Football podcast feed. And we will be on the air Friday night on 96.9 The Legend as Central Phoenix City comes to Dothan to take on the Wolves. Pregame will start at 6:45 and kickoff is at 7. And if you're not in Dothan area, you want to check out the Dothan Wolves, you want to check out that game, listen to it, download the app. It's very easy to go to, and also the website. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. You know where the podcast is at, all your favorite podcast platforms. Watch it on YouTube, all that good stuff. It's available at Wiregrass Daily News as well. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. It should be a fun weekend of games. Until next time. Bye-bye.